another episode of Plan B Success. We have Jordan Levy with us today, who's actually on the road, and he's been on the road since the pandemic started. He's originally from New York, that's where I think he was before he hit the road, and today he's in Savannah, Georgia. Now, Jordan runs a company by name CapSource, where he helps in building and scaling industry-integrated, project-based experiential learning programs. I know that's a mouthful, and we'll find out what that's all about. But basically, he's working with companies to design projects based on what their requirements are. So having said that, let's welcome Jordan, and we'll get started. Welcome, Jordan.
Hello, Rajiv. It's nice to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me on Plan B.
Absolutely. So why don't we begin with what's experiential learning all about?
Yeah, it's great to start there. And recently we actually completed the cycle, and that's what we were kind of working on for the longest time is, we understand what experiential learning is for students and for universities and institutions who we've been partnering with for, over 4 years now. But um, we had to complete the cycle by understanding what was on the other side of the equation, which is projects with industry. And for industry stakeholders, whether it's a nonprofit, that's as big and bold as American Cancer Society, or if it's a little startup that's just coming to founders are just meeting and trying to put some MVP together. Students can really learn a lot from the trials and tribulations of what real professionals are going through. And when we ask ourselves, well, really, now that we've done it like 300 times, we should know what's in it for the companies. And it's experiential hiring. And of course, during the process of sending students off to the races on working on a research challenge for you, you learn about, whatever the challenge area is, go to market strategy, entering, changing a pricing for a certain product, researching regulation in certain regions that you look to enter. Even we got a recent one with Eternal Floor, a company based overseas that wanted help raising their seed round Series A investment. And so, for students, they learn so much and they get to develop some real outcomes for companies who really get to use those resources. And then more importantly, if there's a real opportunity there, hire those students. And so that's really what experiential hiring is all about.
Awesome. So let's kind of delve into your own background. What did you study, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I grew up in the New York area. I actually had been from there my whole life up until I was 18, and actually um, I went to college in the Pennsylvania area, Eastern PA, at a school called Lehigh, and spent about 4 years in that area, kind of commuting between New York and New York and Pennsylvania. And at that point, kind of realized, hey, I really want to live in New York and work in the city and work in accounting and finance. And I learned of KPMG when I was a sophomore. I earned myself an internship going into my senior year. And that was really my first professional experience. And I really never really got a chance to try anything else. I was a camp counselor until then. And so I kind of, by the end of senior year, was like, wow, I really don't want to be a full-time KPMG employee. I actually really don't like accounting and finance. It's fun. I think it's a part of being a business owner and running a business. It was such a great degree and skill set to learn, but I didn't want to do it professionally. But I also didn't know what I wanted to do professionally. And so I kind of turned that like search of inspiration and curiosity quenching, we'll call it, into my job. And I basically went to go look for companies to work with students. I was like, first of all, work with me, right? I'm kind of a learner. I want to find out what you do, and can I help you in some way? And the cool thing is we were originally charging schools, and so we never really had to charge companies. So it was really easy to get them to participate in these programs. And now we are charging companies to participate, which is a new feature of our platform, when they want to do really high quality experiential hiring programs that are custom and built and managed through our technology. There's a small fee, but there's other ways to get started with us that are free, and it's been really awesome to kind of learn and test out all these different ways to get companies to participate in the learning process of people, but also in the hiring and diversification of the talent pipeline perspective as well.
Awesome. So do you have a team support you? I know you're on the road, but do you have a team that's kind of grounded somewhere and supporting you, or how does this work?
So CapSource is a fully virtual team. We have been ever since we started, actually way before the pandemic. And you have what you lose in physical space, you make up for it in technology. And we're a technology company at its core, but instead of having swivel chair managers and constant connections and check-ins, we have virtual teams that we manage through virtual tools. And so everything from project management on Asana, CRM, and practices through our HubSpot, Slack for communication. There's a tool for everything now. Web conferencing, like religiously internal and external meetings, and then we just let people get to work and do the work well. I mean, our culture at CapSource is all about learning, and we want people to learn. And we want people to be where they are and be comfortable and be able to provide for their family first and foremost, and then come to work and learn and also benefit other people that want to learn.
Awesome. And then can you differentiate between experiential learning and experiential hiring, two words that you used, and what are we trying to do with this? Is it basically to correct the skills gap issues that we see out in the industry, or is it more than that?
Yeah, so the best estimates that we have indicate that there's less than 2 million internships available every year, and that's really the only major practice of experiential hiring that's out there, which is orchestrated by companies to provide young talent with opportunity to get hired. Now, the reality is about 4 to 5 million students are leaving undergraduate and graduate programs and going into careers. So they're definitely interested in internships on an annual basis, so we can at least double, triple it, and call it safe. But there's 20 million that are enrolled in college in total, and about 80 million people that fit the age gap of about 16 to 34, and are really curious about what's out there, want to network, want to meet people, and engage in a meaningful way. So experiential learning is the process that candidates and students go through when participating in these programs. And experiential hiring is really the process that companies go through when they're engaging an audience that doesn't currently work with them, but is interested in them, and then actually doesn't want to send a resume with a hopeful cover letter into an abyss, but they actually want to earn an opportunity to prove that they can make a difference at that company, and prove that even though they don't fit the mold or have a degree or a GPA, they can still make it the distance, and make an impact. And so I think that's really where experiential hiring comes in, is being able to attract and qualify and hire and retain the best performing talent on programs that are like internships or case assessments, things that really open the door to getting talent involved in the organization.
Mm-hmm. So was this by choice? How did you get into this whole field?
Pretty much, when I was in school, I just went to go experiment. I said to myself, wow, like I experienced this. I wonder, if the people calling the shots on the curriculum, are experiencing this or hearing this from other students like me. And I learned that, yeah, they were starting to feel, this skills gap challenge, which is, our students prepared for day one on the job. I think pervasively right now, the answer is no. I think that schools are doing a lot to make improvements. They're also going through a renaissance with technology, which is, in large part due to expedited trends because of, COVID and the pandemic. So, I think it's been pretty interesting to work with them as they've evolved as organizations that are becoming more efficient and effective at what they do. And I think experiential learning is a piece of the puzzle that is needed to solve the skills gap. I think, regular curriculum, content-based curriculum, traditional confines of university systems work well, but students need to graduate with a sense of reality. And I think that a lot of students don't, because they're working on only like theory-based projects with stakeholders that don't really care about the outcomes of those projects. If you're doing a class project, no one really reads it besides the professor, and then the professor has seen 1,000 of them before, and there's no, real stakes. And so I think students need a taste of that reality to make a big difference, and that's really what we're all about at CapSource.
Awesome. So in terms of companies nowadays, right? A lot of them are kind of building their own ecosystems, like their own university systems, in terms of attracting talent, training them, retaining them, and shaping them for what they want within their organizations. So how does that come into play with a company like yours, and then the kind of even playing the intermediary between universities and these kinds of organizations?
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting. And one of the things that we did to get this business off the ground is we started with really services to understand our customer, and that's probably the biggest piece of advice I have for budding entrepreneurs and folks that are kind of inspired to create something is figure out the change you want to make in the world, and go talk to people and see if they agree with you. And that's kind of how we started. We went to schools and said, who out there wants to do this? And it's not everyone. We're right now working with early adopters of experiential education. So a lot of programs like capstone programs are popular now, and senior level students get a chance to work on a real project for 3 months during a semester. So those are the low hanging fruit for us, is just meeting those faculty and saying, hey, you're doing something innovative. Can we help you build this, scale this, track this, monitor this, improve this? And, a lot of people hold those programs very near and dear to their heart and aren't ready to, incorporate technology that's going to change the way that they do things. And that's what technology does, right? Like CapSource, like every other tech company, is trying to become a household name that people know of, because it impacted their life in some way positive. And so, they're big institutions, big schools. We've worked with, students at Harvard University. We have worked with students from the University of Notre Dame, from the University of Richmond. So, it's been amazing to meet the diversity of people, first and foremost, that you can interact with that are from these schools all across, the United States and throughout rest of the world. And then you also get to meet business leaders, which is really one of my favorite things in the world, because once you get schools and educators thrilled and excited about the chance of working with companies, then you get to talk to companies and find the ones that say, hey, that sounds pretty cool. That's how we started. And then we started to really develop much better programming for companies and tooling through our product. We also offer an enterprise technology solution where our industry and academic partners can custom tailor their experiential learning and experiential hiring system to their needs, and then create their own programs and manage those through the system. And it helps to ensure that the experience is branded in a way that can be proud for the organizations that brand it. And so we're really growing our Connect system, which is exactly that. It's both the features and the brandability and customizability.
Awesome. So in terms of the services that you provide under the CapSource umbrella, how would you distinguish that? I know you're catering to colleges and universities, the education system, students, as well as organizations. So I'm sure you have something unique for each of them, but how would you categorize them?
So we essentially have three major audiences that we serve through CapSource. The most obvious one is the learner. We build our system around optimizing their experience, but ultimately they're not our key stakeholder, because we're working at an enterprise level with institutions and their academic mentors and educators. And we also work with industry partners and their mentors as well, and hiring personnel. So getting started on the CapSource system is completely free. You can create a little case study assessment and start, getting talent if you're a company, or you can create class projects if you're matched with an appropriate school based on the challenge that you have. Otherwise, we can curate an audience for that particular project, and that's one of our internship programs. And schools are able to similarly, match with companies and use our system to build and manage their program. And so that's really kind of the entry level product for us. And then as they evolve in our ecosystem, our hope is to move more folks onto our enterprise software, which is a fully custom version of our system and used to really make these programs scalable, branded, and you can configure lots of different aspects. So those are pretty much the offerings that we have. It's program development and enterprise software related to experiential learning and hiring.
And in terms of your clientele and where you're catering to, is that generally across the world?
Yeah, so we've worked, predominantly with U.S. organizations, but experiential learning and hiring can happen across borders, which is been really cool to see. We've had students in Afghanistan work on projects related to DoorDash and their efforts to try and expand the business into the university landscape and create the meal plan of the future. So that for us is really exciting. We've had a company in the Philippines coach entrepreneurs working on a wheelchair that can be controlled with head movements when people do not have control over the rest of their body. And we had they're based in Germany, so you have student team from Holy Angel University in the Philippines work with a company from Germany, and obviously we're based in the US but have team members across the entire Middle East and Asia. So we're really excited to be making those global connections and making a global difference, and I think that's been really a lot of fun.
Awesome. So what's the plan of the future? As you go on. One, two questions actually there. One is, being a remote and a virtual company, how did the pandemic treat you as an organization? And then going forward, what are the future plans?
So every year we've doubled in size since we started in terms of revenue and headcount and various other metrics. So we want to continue doubling. I think another thing that we're doing actually for the first time is fundraising. And I think that process is really special because it really forces you as a business leader to think about the future in quantifiable terms, OKRs. So I think we feel lucky that the pandemic, it definitely has caused a lot of disturbances and pain and frustration, which is being experienced by every company. And I I really do my best to see glass half full in every circumstance. And we've of course saw this as an opportunity, but we did also realize that the higher ed industry has experienced the most turnover it's ever experienced over the last 11 months, which is really scary for these schools. I mean, they see their colleagues and situations changing around them, and so we're trying to be as helpful as we can and also stay alive. And so for the time being, we've really invested a lot into our technology to make their experience better. Um, we've helped to put packages together at discounts for schools that didn't have the budgets that they really thought they would or should have to do programs like this. And we're ultimately focusing a lot on the industry partners to step in here and help where they can, right? Like these are programs that ultimately lead to a more enthusiastic contingency out there. And one of the things that I always say is that from 2020 to 1970, it's amazing how many companies have disappeared off of the Fortune 500 list. It's like under 10% can really make it through. And my my long-term hypothesis is if you can get really big, bold companies like that to work with the next generation, that won't happen. And the reason why is everyone's growing up seeing that product as a piece of their life in some way and something that they can get involved in. And I think that's a really special connection that you can have, even if you don't end up working there. And like, of course, right now, a company like EY or KPMG, like the intern I participated in, has a program for 2,000 students and ultimately hires about 1,600 of those students. Well, I think they should be providing internships for 10,000 students. But how do we make that valuable for KPMG? And so that's really what CapSource aims to do, is make them scalable so that more people can experience what it's like to be, internal at KPMG. What's the culture like? What types of projects? How can I help them? Can I add value? Should I be hired? And I think that's what experiential hiring is about. And it's also what experiential learning is about. And so I think we're the first company really making that connections and making it customizable through enterprise software. And I'm hoping that, we'll continue to grow as a virtual company and really help more people and find their dreams come true and be able to chase curiosity and monetize it, as I like to say.
How much of our traditional education system do you think is still valid in today's time with all these changes coming together? Do you still believe that there's a place for our traditional education system, or does it, is the pace of change too slow for it?
I mean, I think that it's only a matter of time until the change of pace has to catch up, and it has been. I think that schools have made drastic improvements, and they're starting to attract people that can actually implement those changes, and they're starting to use vendors to help make those changes. And I went on a webinar recently that said these schools are basically education curators now. They're not education creators, they're education curators. And that is different than the K-12 system, because you really do have to instill principles. And higher ed or tertiary education is really an opt-in model only. Like you're not obliged to go. There's questions of whether or not you'll be prepared, but one thing, the reason why we target schools is because we believe that of the 20 million people that are enrolled in formal education, they're the most likely future leaders. And the reason why that is when you talk to leaders of businesses right now, every single one of them has a degree. So obviously they're doing something right. It's just about evolving, right? So that they could do it better, honestly. And like who knows if CapSource and experiential learning and hiring is like, a small piece of that model or a big, Uber-like portion of that model. We hope it's an Uber-like portion, because we believe that students need these experiences, and that when schools and companies are left to their own accord, they just won't create them. And if they do, and I mentioned KPMG and EY, these are some of the largest intern programs in the entire country. And then they pay their interns like $15,000 for the summer. Like that's a completely unscalable model. And we just need more opportunities for people to get out there and practice and connect and network. And I think that's what we're really trying to solve for.
Awesome. So, as a part of what you're doing, are you also creating any kind of proprietary technologies as such?
Yeah, well, so the interesting thing about most talent platforms is that they're really just an amalgamation of features that can be used to deliver an excellent outcome, and it's never ending, right? Like think about Facebook. There's of course some proprietary stuff built into their algorithms and um and their their social network, and the
Mhm.
ability to socialize. But truly, nothing in and of itself within that is novel. It's all just reinvented constantly. And like CapSource is also reinvented constantly on a shoestring budget compared to Facebook, but we make changes based on what we're learning from our users, and we trust our power users a little bit more than folks that have never experienced the platform and worked with us. And so I think that there's certainly something proprietary about the way that we help operationalize these types of programs in a way that's custom branded and rich in features. And so I think it's amazing to be a user of your own product. I don't know if everyone gets a chance to do that as an entrepreneur, but like, you know, we do, and we get to serve our clients and actually use our product and make it better, and use those features, and you really use that experimentation process to validate that features are needed, and get feedback on those features as they're developed. And it's been amazing. We rolled out a whole program management feature recently, which allows people to put folks on a timeline, request deliverables and feedback, and really kind of ensure that the actual experiences that we put into design into our system are actually managed appropriately. And that's how we're looking to ensure even more excellence. Like, can any other companies do that? I'm not sure. I don't know of any, not that are running their own programs, especially. So yeah, it's been really cool to develop technology. I've been in the technology space ever since I graduated as an education technology entrepreneur, and really just like creating software and customizing that software so that it works. Um, is certainly something that I enjoy a lot, and it's one of the product development and feature development is one of the most exciting parts of what we do at CapSource.
Awesome. So, Jordan, one more question for you is in terms of the services that you're providing, and in terms of the partnerships and the integrations. I know you said you're focused more on the U.S. at this point in time. Do you see the company scaling internationally at some point?
Yeah, we're definitely investing into international. I think actually that's what's going to make our product way more defensible is, can it serve audiences that are abroad? Everyone experiences the same challenges. We're one Earth, a digital global company serving global customers already. I would say as of right now, probably about 15% of our revenue comes from overseas. Um, I would love to see that grow. It all depends on how growth goes in the US, and one needs to fund the other. And we definitely have more relationships and infrastructure in the US. Um, there's also definitely some nuances related to talent in different countries that we would have to explore. But I do wonder how many of the of talent and education providers are able to do a good job overseas. But I think that's one of the novelties of our platform is, like, if you're a student, we had one University of Richmond right after the pandemic started was supposed to take their students to Peru to do a program on on the ground consulting for companies. And that whole thing was canceled because of COVID. And so they reached out to us and were like, hey, can you put a virtual version together for us? And I was like, yeah, why not? We just, we emailed 500 entrepreneurs and leaders of business in Peru. It wasn't hard for them to say, yeah, I'd love to work with an MBA student group from Richmond. And then they were off to the races. And they actually produced such incredible outcomes. We did a webinar with Thomas Koss, who's the leader of that program at the University of Richmond. He's dean for international business, and he's just such a character that enjoys to make a difference on the students and companies that he brings together. And so we really had a lot of fun putting those programs together, and I look forward to doing many more, because everyone serves the benefit if you're able to figure out the financial buy-in. And I think that's what we really want companies to see, is that there's really a lot of value in participating in these programs. And they take a lot of good engineering and product, as well as customer assistance and support to make happen. And so I think that's why we're hoping that companies are interested in buying in, and we certainly know schools are. But of course, it's not the easiest thing to buy technology when people are leaving the organization. So I'm hopeful that we'll become more international, and further reaching in our efforts, and really provide a solution that meaningfully educates people and helps them find jobs.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you for so much for sharing your story, your company. It's very inspirational, the work that you're doing, especially in this changing times, as we see everything accelerate and morph, whether it's being virtual, working from home, studying from home, whatever the experiences are. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was been really great to be with you, and I love your questions and your curiosity. And I think podcasts are a great way to just meet folks that have something that they want to share with the world and really pick their brain and chase your own curiosity as you're doing it. So I encourage folks to get in touch with us on our website, capsource.io. Feel free to reach out by email or LinkedIn. You can find me there. But it's been great to chat, Rajeet, and I appreciate your help in expanding the work that we do.
Thank you very much.